All right, last, let me show you an example of using a library to do like a more complicated measurement. I'm not actually going to like hook up the Arduino and do it, but like this was a recent thing that came up on a senior design project at UD. So like, for example, if you want to use like, let's say this load cell amplifier that is this is sold by a company called SparkFun, and it's basically a way to simplify the task of creating and exciting a Wheatstone bridge and measuring its signal. So this chip is basically like, it communicates with the Arduino, but basically like what it does is the chip itself provides a voltage that goes into a Wheatstone bridge setup and then measures like the voltage difference across the bridge, does digital to analog conversion using like a 24 volt A to D converter, and then sends the number back to the Arduino. So that whole process seems pretty complicated if you have to like actually wire that up and like read out all the bits yourself. But so like the idea is that you buy this chip costs like $10, and then you use a pre-existing library to avoid having to know how to do any of that. So here's how it works. So like in like the Arduino IDE, in the toolbox or the tools up at the top, there's a pull down called like Manage Libraries. So it turns out there's good libraries. Oh, what happened? Manage Libraries. You can search for the particular library you're interested in. So like I was interested in this HX711 load cell amplifier, and it turns out actually a bunch of people have written libraries for this. The one that like they probably all work, or most of them work. So like the one that I'm gonna just like focus on is this one. So like you can, for example, like install this library just by clicking install. It takes like a couple seconds. So it successfully installed it. Now what if I want to use it? I don't know how to use that thing. How do I use a library? So if you click on more info, it'll take you to, for example, like the GitHub page where it actually got those files from. In there like are all of the various codes that were used to generate that library. But like look, there's a folder called examples. Click on it. Inside that there's a bunch of examples. So like, for example, you're usually on a first attempt interested in the so-called basic example. So if I click on the basic example and bring it up, voila, I've got my, like, here is a working code that like this person says should work. So it should get pretty darn close. If it's this one's probably not as well commented as I would like it to be, but I can sort of still see what it's doing. So like before the setup loop, it is including that library, the HX711 library. It is, I guess, defining which pins are going to be used to do communication with that load cell, is what it looks like. So this D out usually refers to like the data out pin for an I2C communication style. SCK usually stands for the sample clock or source clock. I forget what it is, but it's some kind of clock signal that has to be sent to the, as part of the I2C communication. And then like it's using the library to set up an object called scale, which I guess is what it's going to call the load cell, the scale. When the Arduino first turns on, it initiates something that is, I actually don't know what's in this library, but it is beginning some sort of process associated with the scale. It looks like it's telling the Arduino like what the data pin is and the clock pin, and is sending that into the like to begin some kind of communication with the circuit. Then it goes through a loop, and I don't know, like, again, I don't know what goes on inside this library, but there's something that determines whether there's something that determines whether the scale is ready. If it is ready, make a reading, right? Like read the scale. Again, like I didn't program this. I have no idea what's in this library doing that read operation, but somebody wrote this and it probably works. So you read it out, and then like you can print it, or whatever, to your screen if you want to get the data out. So look, in like a minute, we downloaded enough code to actually run that load cell. And I don't know anything about I2C communication, but whoever wrote this library did, and it's hard coded in there. So that's the kind of thing you can do by like using. That's what I mean when I say like use libraries and then basically look for examples. If you can't find an example, again, like ChatGPT or like or Microsoft Copilot can usually do this. I believe I tried this on Copilot and it worked earlier. Let's see if we can get that to work right. So like write code for an Arduino Uno R3 to gather data from the HX711 like SparkFun board. Let's see what it does. Boop. Ta-da. So it'll tell you what to do even. Like, so it'll do essentially the same thing that was in that example because it's plagiarizing from the internet, but how badly do we care about that? And it'll even give you some idea of like what you have to do. It says like before you proceed, you like have to have the following things. And like it'll tell you a little bit about like what you have to install and like all that stuff. There's even like a helpful link to a hookup guide. So, what else do you want? So yeah, my recommendation is go ahead, like use generative AI. It's pretty good.